We've been working on the outer game. I mean, you know, getting people's tactics and strategies and sales techniques and all that stuff. But you came here to talk about the inner game and how we can achieve 5, 10, much more than we thought. So just a few moments on that. You gave us an hour. Give us a few moments.
Well, when we take a look at results, we're looking at effects, right? So if you're looking at results of your sales, if you look at results of your marketing, you look at results in your business, we're looking at effects. The question is, what's causing us to think the way we think? What's causing us to behave the way we behave? And everybody's heard that we're creatures of habit. The questions are we creatures of the right habits that are going to get us to the next goal that we want to achieve? And in most cases, the answer is no. And we make incremental gains because that's the way our physical body works, little small gains. And we're really capable of making monumental or quantum leaps. But it has to start with our thinking. It has to start with our beliefs and our perceptions of what's possible, not just for us, but in general to achieve success in business. And so I love to work on that inner game because it's a reflection, no differently than if you're watching a movie and you don't like what's on the screen, or you've seen the movie over and over again. What you've got to remember is the movie that you're watching is nothing more than a projector of what's on the reel. So if you want to see a different movie, a different result in your life or your business, let's change the DVD. Let's change what's on the reel, and then everything else starts to change.
Okay, so how do we change that?
Well, first what we want to do is no differently than a movie producer would say, what do I want the movie to look like at the end? What's the feeling, the emotion in the movie? We start with the end in mind. So we set the goal, the vision for the movie. Then we say, well, what do I need to believe in order to be able to achieve that? So, for example, James Cameron, was interviewed recently, and he said that he had that movie in his head since he was a kid. And it took him 20, 30 years to wait for the technology to be able to do what he had already seen on the screen of his mind for years and years and years. Then he raised, $400 million, produced a movie, generated $2 billion now. Well, he started with the end game, with the image first. And then he had the belief that one day he would do it. It took a while, but he started with the end game first, had the beliefs, and then created the strategies and tactics once the technology was available to do that.
But I think you've seen people, I mean, that first step is critical, that we don't set, big's maybe the wrong word, but not a sufficient end game. How do we get people to let go of their fears to get something bigger?
Well, we're playing small because we're playing a physical game. Right? And so, if you think about why do we set goals the way we set them? Well, because of our parents, because of maybe our teachers, because of maybe our friends and the environment that we're in. And that starts to limit us based on what we're now learning about the brain's ability to find the information we need. It limits us from the vibratory perspective of where we can vibrate, no differently than if you don't like the radio station you're listening to, you can tune into a different station. Well, when you set a new goal, a bigger goal, one you've never achieved before, you're actually conditioning your brain to tap into that new frequency. And so you're now altering your thoughts from the inside, you're altering your perceptions from the inside, but more importantly, now you're starting to think about, well, how can I be doing that differently? How can I be taking different actions? So you'd never have the thoughts of what you need to do unless you set the bigger goal. You'd never ask the questions, you'd never read the books, you'd never go to the seminars, you'd never hire the consultants. But once you set that big goal, and then you say, well, how can I do that? So we start to learn how to ask better questions. And in asking those better questions, we start to meet people, learn about products or services that give us those answers. And so we've got to understand more than anything else, it happens on the inside first, and then we find out all of the physical stuff on the outside.
So, John, we got to get this inner game right before we go work on the outer game.
Absolutely. Every athlete, every musician, everybody that you see playing the game at the highest level has mastered the inner game first.
John, thank you.
My joy.